You've been saving your entire life for retirement, dreaming about all the things you're finally going to do, the trips, the hobbies, the bucket list. But here's what 300 retirees said when researchers asked them what actually made retirement meaningful. And it's not just the bucket list. It was something far simpler that most people completely overlook until it's too late. Hi, I'm Caton St. Hilaire, investment advisor at 160 Wealth. I spend my days helping Canadians navigate the transition into retirement. And what I've learned is that the financial plan is only half the equation. The other half is something most advisors never talk about. And today, I'm going to walk you through the themes that emerged from research involving hundreds of retirees, why the bucket list approach often backfires, and what you need to focus on instead if you want a retirement that actually feels fulfilling. Here's what we're going to cover. First, the surprising research on what retirees say matters most. Second, why the bucket list mentality can actually set you up for disappointment. And third, a simple framework that you can use to build a retirement that feels meaningful every single day, not just on vacation. Let me start with the research. Retirement researchers set out to find out what actually drives life satisfaction after people start working. And the findings consistently surprised many researchers. You might expect the data to show that travel matters most, or time to golf, or finally crossing off those bucket list items. But that's not what kept showing up. Across multiple studies, a strong sense of purpose and daily structure consistently ranked among the most important contributors to retirement satisfaction. Not adventure, not leisure, purpose and structure. The retirees who struggled most had done everything right financially. Plenty of money, plenty of free time, and absolutely no idea what to do with themselves on a random Tuesday afternoon in February. Picture it. You've spent 30 or 40 years with every hour of your life accounted for. Your identity wrapped up in your work. Your friendships built around colleagues. Then one day, it just stops. And you're staring down 25 to 30 years of wide open time with nothing but a vague idea about maybe traveling more. This is exactly where the bucket list falls apart. And I need you to understand why. Because this mindset can sometimes leave retirees feeling less fulfilled than they expected. The bucket list is built entirely around peak experiences. The trip to Italy, the safari, the cruise. Those things are wonderful. But here's the trap. Peak experiences are meaningful, but they're also temporary by nature. You cannot sustain a 30-year retirement on 2 weeks in Tuscany. So what happens the other 50 weeks of the year? What happens when you've crossed off the big items and you're back home with nothing on the calendar? Harvard psychologist Dan Gilbert spent years studying why our predictions about happiness are almost always wrong. One of his findings was that people often overestimate how much lasting happiness major events will deliver, and they underestimate how quickly the feeling fades. You take the dream trip. You feel amazing for a few weeks, and over time, many people find the emotional impact fades faster than they expected, and they begin looking for the next experience to recreate that feeling. The retirees in that research who reported the highest life satisfaction were not the ones with the biggest bucket lists. They were the ones who had built what researchers call sustainable sources of meaning, daily rituals, ongoing relationships, contributing to something beyond themselves. A reason to get out of bed that didn't depend on booking that next flight. Now, here's where I need to be direct with you. If your retirement plan is mostly about finally having time to relax and do whatever you want, you may encounter what some psychologists describe as retirement paradox. That freedom that you spent decades dreaming about, for many retirees, it starts to feel a lot less like liberation and more like silence that they don't know how to fill. I've seen this happen to clients who had everything figured out financially, but nothing figured out personally. This is exactly the kind of thing that we help clients think through at 160 Wealth, because the financial side and the life side are deeply connected. If you want help building a plan that accounts for both, I've put a link in the description below to book a time with me. So what do retirees who are actually thriving have in common? Three things. And I want you to honestly assess yourself on each one, because this is the part that most people never think about until it's too late to build it. Part one is identity. Your job gave you a ready to answer question about who you are. And when that disappears, you need something to replace it. Many retirees who reported high levels of satisfaction had cultivated identities outside of work before retiring. They were not just a former accountant or a retired nurse. They were a woodworker, a mentor, a community volunteer, a grandparent who shows up every single week. Here's a test for you right now. If you couldn't mention your job or your former job, how would you describe who you are? If you're struggling to answer that, you have work to do before you retire. And the good news is that work starts today. Part two is structure. Now, this sounds counterintuitive because most people retire specifically to escape structure. But here's what nobody tells you. For many people, complete freedom can feel unexpectedly disorienting over time. Many people are not accustomed to that level of unstructured time. The retirees who thrived had what one researcher called flexible structure. Not a rigid schedule, but anchor points throughout the week. Monday morning coffee with friends, Wednesday volunteer shift, Friday date night, Sunday family dinner. These anchors give shape to time and prevent those days from blurring into one indistinguishable haze where you can't remember if it's Tuesday or Thursday. Part three is contribution. And this is the one that keeps surprising researchers. It shows up across study after study as one of the most powerful associations with retirement well-being. Feeling like you're contributing to something beyond yourself. It doesn't have to be grand. Mentoring somebody younger in your field, helping a neighbor with their taxes, teaching a skill you've mastered over decades, being present for your grandchildren in a way that you could not be for your own kids because you were building a career. The key is that it has to matter to someone other than you. The golf trips and the cruises have their place, but for most people, they're not enough to carry for 30 years. Here's what is fascinating and a little heartbreaking. I wished I had thought about more who I was retiring to, not what I was retiring from. They had focused so intensely on escaping work that they had never built a vision for what would replace it. Here's what separates the retirees who are thriving from those who are not. The bucket list is not wrong. Travel and adventure and crossing off dreams absolutely have a place in retirement. But if that's your entire plan, you may be relying too heavily on temporary experiences for long-term fulfillment. Retirees who reported high levels of satisfaction often had sustainable sources of meaning built into their daily lives. Purpose, structure, and contribution. Those three things do not cost money, and they don't require perfect health, and they don't run out after 2 weeks. The financial plan helps support retirement, but lifestyle, relationships, and purpose often play a major role in long-term retirement satisfaction. If you want help thinking through both sides of that equation, book a time with me. The link is in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.